let's get started. Since a lot of people are here ahead of time and on time, and the others will catch up probably. Voilà. Oui, Kavi, viens t'asseoir devant. Be a cheerleader. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Shab Ismail, for those who don't know me yet, from Carnegie, Mauritius for the past 12 years with me, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you all here today to discuss a very hot topic, the talent management and retention and development. I guess in this room, we are all passionate about developing people, as well as thriving results in the business world. And God knows that this world has been quite versatile, dynamic, so how to cope with all this? And well, at Dale Carnegie, strong from our experience worldwide, we have been actually working on a concept of 7 talents that we will introduce to you. So these are the 7 talents that have been identified so far, so it is a dynamic list. So for you to know that we are talking about, obviously, today's reality, which is working from home, which is psychological safety. Maybe those words and those concepts were there before, but not as developed as they are today. So to shed some light on the matter, well, I had a conversation with Noah Dali. So just for you to know, Noah has been with Dale Carnegie since the past 12 years. She works for the head office, and she's the Vice President of Global Accounts and Outsourcing, the Vice President of Growth for Europe, Middle East, Asia, Pacific, so she has a wide exposure around the world, and obviously she's our dear support here in Mauritius. So let's hear Noah on the topic.
Well, Noah, welcome, and thank you so very much to be with us, even remotely, for this HR firm that we are holding in Mauritius. Always a pleasure to have your insights. And without further ado, let me ask you the first question. We're talking about those 7 talents. Where do they actually stem from?
So always a pleasure, Shab. And yeah, it's a very good question, because we're always asked, so did we create those talent trends? Where did we see them? And what we have done as Dale Carnegie is that we've really been researching with our clients globally what could be the biggest trends that truly impact their business and their talents within their business. And so these are trends that we continuously update to make sure that we have the latest, because the world is changing, the needs are changing. So these really come from the business, from our clients globally.
All right, so it looks like we've literally earned the right to talk about them, strong with the partnership and the client and the studies that we've made. And from what I understand, these are dynamic, meaning that today those are the ones that are important and tomorrow they may vary, right?
Very much so, yes.
All right. So we are talking about 7 talents. Now that's a lot to tackle. So if we were to give a sense of priority, which are the ones that would be critical to business today?
So yes, there are many. So if I were to look at the 7, they're all important. For each business, whether it is because of the maturity of the business, whether it's the maturity of the economy, the talent trends might differ in terms of prioritization. Those that we see more and more critical for the business successes with our clients globally, I can combine 2 of them together, which is the managing a hybrid workplace that engages and inspires. And the second trend, which is very directly linked, being diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And this is the first priority. The second priority is leading continuous change with agility and resilience. So if I were to just go over slightly the first one, it is because the world has changed so much that post-pandemic, businesses are usually working hybrid one way or another. And maybe hybrid has taken as well a different shape and form. So whether we live in a country where diversity and inclusion is part of the name of the game, like for example in Mauritius, or not, or a company where diversity and inclusion is a priority or not, this is not what we're really looking at here. What our clients are telling us is that as leaders, it is a conscious decision that we need to work on, that we need to start looking at how do I include everybody differently than I have done before, for various reasons. One, because if I have a hybrid workforce, maybe the airtime, the face time that I give to people who are with me in the office, it needs to be with equal proportion to those who are not in the office with me. Secondly, is that we are having different generations coming in the organization. And when these different generations are in the organization, you will see that their sense of inclusion is different. So the concept of diversity looks at takes a very different dimension, very different proportion. And so it is new to all of us. So this is what we are hearing from our clients, is that it's a conscious decision that we need to define inclusion and to look at how do I capitalize on the diversity that I have. So this is number one. The second priority that I would say is the leading continuous change and agility. And this is mainly because what many of our clients, if not all our clients, are telling us is that leaders are facing a very different set of challenges. A set of challenges as to how do I lead the different changes that we're facing, whether in our industry, in our markets in general, in our countries, in our economies, in our companies as well, whether it's the demographics that are changing, the priorities, the vision, all of that. And so we need to equip our leaders from supervisory skills to all the way to the executive teams. It's a different leadership skills that they need to be equipped with. So those are really the two most critical ones, although as you said, everything is important, but those are some of the two most critical ones.
Thank you, Noah. So that looks like at a global level, this is what we are looking at, this is what we have observed, right?
Yes.
And funny enough, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, or rather when we talk about agility and resilience, it's also linked to the psychological safety, which is one of the right. So it's really intricate, but let us at least start somewhere. So Noah, you've been working very closely with us in Mauritius for the large corporates. So you have a knowledge of who we are in Mauritius in our ecosystem and how we evolve here. So what would be your appreciation of the local market? If we were to bring that to the local market, how would that be relevant for us here for STEM talents?
Yes, and you're absolutely right that we need to contextualize everything. One of the key things is that as Carnegie, we ensure that we always work with the global perspective, not with a trend. We will not call it a trend if it's not something that we see across business. And so, for example, we've been working with companies like Gerbe on developing their leadership talents, or Pepco, or ABB and others across the globe. And when I talk with yourself, with Bimi, with your key clients in Mauritius, the business needs are very similar, because leadership and the concept of leadership, or the concept of inclusion, it might be with a different context, but it's not just geographical. The business talent trends are truly universal, and it might take a different priority, but those that we've just prioritized and that I've just shared moments ago are those that we are hearing from your key clients in Mauritius as well, saying, how do we tackle that? How do we approach this? So Mauritius is a business hub, and so the talent trends definitely apply in Mauritius as much as they apply everywhere else as well.
All right, so we are pretty much aligned with what's happening globally.
Very much, and because
we are definitely aligned with what's happening in the world.
I think it's a network error.
Network error. Maybe you want to tell us how the interview ended.
Well, yeah, very simply, we agreed with Noah that yes, leaders in Mauritius are quite ahead of times. And it's not because we are so far away in a remote place in the Indian Ocean island that we are not facing the same challenges. And actually, it seems from her experience, not my words, hers, that we are tackling it quite well. So the idea here is see with you, Vimy, and your guest and our panelists today, how we can bring that to our reality, not only to survive in this business world, but also to thrive, and that's the whole discussion. How is it applicable here?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shab. And I was at a wedding this entire week, and yesterday, as part of the activity at the reception, they had a caricaturist, and the way that the MC introduced the guy, he said, he's got this talent, whatever shortcoming you have, he just accentuates it. I think that's not the kind of talent that we are talking about here today. So talent, one of the things about talent that, the definition is somebody who's got an aptitude or a skill. So before we get talking about this topic of 7 talent trends, we will be defining what we understand about talent. Who else to get us to understand that definition other than 4 very high profile people in the business here in Mauritius. First of all, and I'm going to ask you to help me in welcoming them. And by the way, one of them, Annie, unfortunately she can't be here. We all know that COVID is kind of back in shape a little bit, so unfortunately Annie apologizes, but I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to talk to her at a later stage. So I'm going to start with the ladies first. So probably Vanesha's name is very known in that HR field. She's been working for more than 25 years and with more than 15 years in the HR space. Graduated from the University of Wales and Cardiff Business School with a BSc in economics, worked as an economist for 10 years, and then she fell into the HR pool, right? Looking for new challenges and opted to do an MBA with specialization in HR in the year 2002, and that's how she stepped into the HR world. She joined the Currimjee group in 2017 as the CHRO, and key responsibilities being the HR, sustainability, and the Currimjee Foundation. She's also a non-executive director on a number of boards, and her passion being her family, gardening, she loves reading, and TED Talks. Vanesha, please join me here. Thank you very much, and we give Vanesha a round of applause. Moving on to Christopher Park, whom is known, I think, for him belonging to a large group, the Terra group, where he's been for the last 9 years. Terra group, just for our information, has got 1,300 employees, covering 4 main clusters. So quite a big responsibility for Christopher to maintain a shoulder from a strategic perspective. Prior to this, he was the corporate HR manager at the Rogers Group. I didn't know that, so learned that today. Chris completed his studies in Australia, finishing with a master's degree in HR marketing and business law. He's a certified strength coach and master NLP practitioner. Chris, please join us there. Thank you very much. And we have with us Kavi Oogarah, who's got more than 20 years of experience as HR practitioner. Kavi, his vision is to be a strategic partner and create the best environment for the people. His higher purpose is to change the landscape of OD in Mauritius. He recently joined Airport Holdings Limited, as Chief HR Officer to take up a new challenge in the airline and airport ecosystem after 20 years in the private sector. Being new to his role, in fact, he will share with us more his personal insights as a HR professional on the topic. Kavi, please join us. Now this one is a little bit trickier because, Manish, I think Manish doesn't need introduction, and I've been through a couple of his books, so if you haven't, it's quite interesting to do that. And I was trying to figure out how do I introduce him. And I thought he was going to make it easier for me by giving me a couple of lines, and that's what you normally ask for. Then he replied to me saying, introduce me as you want to. So make it a little bit more tough. So what I'm going to read, I found what he wrote about himself on his LinkedIn page quite relevant. I'm a corporate monk who wears multiple hats: business leader, coach, facilitator, author, mentor, and speaker. As a catalyst, as a leader, I act as a catalyst who ignites the spark of transformation in people. As a coach, I hold the space to develop clarity of mind, courage to dare, and conviction to act. As a facilitator, I challenge and support people to tap into their inner resources. And as an author, I have written and published 2 bestsellers, and I post regularly as a thought leader on LinkedIn, and I do follow you on that one, Manish, and I think a lot of people do. Please join me out there, Manish. Thank you. All right, so, like I was saying, my definition of talent was not too good from the example I gave you yesterday. So, and as we were preparing for this panel discussion, I think one of the things we realized is that we probably do not, from a different corporate perspective, refer to talent in the same way. So maybe, Vanesha, if you wish to tell us from maybe the Currimjee group or from your perspective, what is it that is meant when you talk of talent?
If you go by, good afternoon all. If you go by the classical definition of talents for me, I think one would say, it's really about looking for people, scarcity of talents, scarcity of skills, the complexity of jobs, high potential people, which bring change in the organization. But we're just discussing a bit earlier when we were just having coffee, and with the whole issue of talent acquisition today, I think talent definition could be so broad now. It's so difficult to recruit, even when you're talking about an accounts clerk. So I think it puts a lot of perspective in terms of how we want to go by the definition of talent. But I think the classical definition would be scarcity, complexity, and people which will bring high potential to the organization.
First time I heard the term high pose, I wondered, okay, so people are recruiting, like animals around here. So maybe we move on to Chris and then we go down this way. Definition of talent in your business environment.
Thanks, Mimi. Hi, everyone. Personally, I believe that everyone is a talent. Everyone has the potential, has the strengths to be able to do more. The challenge is actually matching the right talent to the right role and creating that environment, that culture where these talents of yours can be engaged and be able to achieve their potential. So again, the factors that that are used, scarcity, how long it takes to be trained in a specific role. What else do we have? We have specialized knowledge or skills. So all those contribute to the definition of a talent, but again, everyone is talent.
Yeah.
So we just have to find the right.
And that's a basic concept that everyone has got a talent. Kavi, yeah, you might want to put it on. I think it's.
Yes. Thank you, Mimi. Hi, everyone. For me, based on my personal experience, the definition of talent, it might vary in different different sectors. For example, if I take manufacturing, 90% would be on the floor level, 10% would be maybe graduates. And if I take the offshore sector, it will be the reverse, 90% graduates and maybe 10% on non-graduates. And I think it's a lot to do with the potential for value creation. I mean, my definition of talent would be that potential to create value in an organization.
That should be what you're trying to.
So just to keep it simple, everything what it said, so I agree with that. But maybe to add it, another perspective is, let's explore the etymology of talent. So, and I was researching about this morning before coming and saying, well, where does the word talent come from? So actually it comes from Latin, talentum, which in itself means weight. So, or it used to be amount of gold. So if you look at it, that's the origin of talent, and then over time it became, we started to give new meanings to it, and as the language evolves, you develop new meanings assigned to it. So for me, talent in fact is, I confirm what everyone has just said, that everyone has talent, has innate talent, so in a way innate potential, but also it's really how do we realize that talent. But in the context of organizations, very often we focus on the 15 to 20% which will make the most impact, right? And as Vanesha was saying, you look at it from multiple filters, through specific lenses, such as scarcity of that talent on the market, the complexity of the role that they're required to do, which requires them to perform, and what they excel at, and how they're able to, and the rarity on the market as well. So that's how
I like the definition. So we've got quite a fair amount of gold in this room. Yeah. Okay. So if we go back to that 7 talent trend that we were mentioning earlier on, and thinking about, I know you come from different sectors, and some of you do have various sector that you do shoulder. So the question would be, out of these 7 talents, which were the one that you harnessed on in the last couple of years when the going was really tough? And if you may share with us what particular challenges you met on that end. So I don't know who wants to start while we're getting the microphone fixed. All right, c'est bon, de facto.
Then if you look at the 7 trends, I think all are very much relevant to organizations. And if you look at the Currimjee group, we operate in different sectors, in different industries. But I would say what we've been really focusing on over the last 2 years and post-COVID has been on 3 and 4. But again, we're currently and actively working on 6. Which is about motivating teams that manage incentive. But leading continuous change with agility and resilience. I think that's a bit what all organizations are doing, but we've been really focusing a lot during COVID and post-COVID. I think in terms of agility, we've been able as a group to switch on to hybrid work the very next day. In terms of the futurist mindset, being in the technical cluster, that does help. But I think in terms of also looking at future skills, so being very proactive when we talk about resilience. So how do you build resilience within the organization? Is how do you actually equip and man your talents, not necessarily all talents, but I think your workforce in terms of what are the skills that you're looking for in terms of the business. And it all goes back to the company strategy. I mean, your future skills are very much based in terms of where the organization is going in the next 2 to 3 years. So that would really help you building your competence and building resilience and building agility. So I think this is very much topical right now in all industries that we're currently working. And I think like all organizations have been doing during COVID and post-COVID, we're still very much working on, has been on physical well-being and mental well-being. So we're very much in that space right now from a group perspective. from a mental perspective, got the counseling psychologist, but I think it's not really looking at it on a piecemeal approach. It's very much more of an integrated sort of framework that we put forward from the group. So it's not like individual entities having their own wellbeing initiatives. What we call it is the CG wellbeing program. So, and we're looking at the mental, physical, a lot of awareness. We currently training, if you want, the line managers in terms of how to detect people who might have, and that's quite challenging because it's not really something people would want to talk about in terms of your mental well-being. So we're looking to train the line managers in terms of detecting how young people can actually, and this is something where the new generation is very much focused on. And let's just say that where we would also want to focus on is really about mindfulness. So that's what we would like to focus on, and this is really about getting the executives, which is more about the money.
That's the approach, like Noha was just saying about the top-down approach.
So yeah, that's, I think 3 and 4 for us would be what we've been focusing on and would still be working on very much so.
Thank you. Chris, anything that is different in what
The group did over the last couple of years?
Firstly, I think since, of course, 2020, the environment, the working environment that we are currently in has dramatically changed. I mean, it used to be, we could foresee a few years in the future and say, okay, that's fine, we can make a strategy 3, 5, 7 years ahead. Today, there's just so many changes, and you think you've overcome one, something else smacks you and you back down again. You have to build that resilience and be able to bounce back and say, okay, well, it's changed again. What do we do? And for us at Terra, the priority it's in there in a way. It's all about the culture. It's all about creating a culture where there is this agility and resilience built in, and that's a top-down driven approach from my point of view, where it can be teachable, so you can teach.
How challenging is it to create that culture of resilience or agility in general?
It's a very long-term initiative. It's challenging because it has to be top-down driven. So if the executive or the heads don't agree with it, it's extremely difficult. So once you have their buy-in, once you have their drive, and they say, yes, this is important, it becomes a lot easier. And then going down different levels and really co-creating this culture of results-oriented, agile culture. It takes time and a lot of work.
Yeah. And the term co-creation comes back a lot. So maybe Manish, you want to bridge on to that from the different perspectives that you have?
Yeah, for us also, I would say if I were to choose one, then it's number 3. Because also for us, it's a bit like what Vanesha said, 3 and 4. But the level number 4 falls under 3 as well, under resilience. So we've been on a journey to develop an agile culture. So agility has been part of our values since 15 years now. And we've done so much about it that we even wrote a book about it. So the essence of it is agility and resilience are 2 sides of the same coin. It's really the output for us the outcome is really to develop a future-fit organization. So future-fit teams, future-fit people, so as to be able to thrive in an environment which is changing at a more rapid pace. The way we define the world today. Let's say earlier on in the late 1990s, the world was termed as VUCA. Yeah, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, everyone has heard about it. Now it's termed as RUPT, which is rapid, unprecedented, paradoxical, entangled. What it means is you need to keep on evolving. So agility then here, the main focus of agility is developing learning agility in people. So how they're able to stay agile. And by agility, what it simply means is to be able to outperform your environment. So the perfect metaphor for it is it's like you're sailing on the sea. if the sea is calm, then you don't need to be very agile with it. You can just sail smoothly. If the sea is a bit choppy, then you need to be a bit more agile. And if the sea is very rough, then that's where you need the most agility. So it's really the ability to anticipate changes, to see how things are around you, to act swiftly and decisively and collectively, so that at the same time you learn and you apply. So that's agility. And the other side of it, resilience is what enables agility. And by resilience, we mean mental toughness and physical fitness. So that's where the whole element of well-being, your health set, becomes more important. So the health set and the mindset today are more important than the skill set required to thrive.
So Manish, just quickly, like you were mentioning, that agility was a value within the group for 15 years plus. So to what extent was that an advantage to cope with that situation since 2020, or would you say it was not really? So was it a foundation already that you built on or not?
It did help, because the moment we had to go into lockdown, we had to adapt overnight. We were able to do it quite seamlessly, very swiftly. It did take some adjustments, but we kind of sailed through it because people have been building the muscle of agility in the organization since many years through how we define the values, how we train people using the behaviors that we define about it. So, and that really helped.
Thanks a lot. Kavi, from your perspective, what have you seen an organization focusing on?
Yes, from my perspective, it would be number 2. Based on the 7th trend, one of the things that is clear is that talent is volatile. If I have to take my own example, after 7 years in manufacturing, this year I started in manufacturing, I moved into the financial services and technology sector, then now I'm in aviation. So it shows that we are in a different paradigm where we need to be agile, like Manish just mentioned. Why I chose selling in a remote environment, just a few examples. When I was in manufacturing, our business model was B2B, so we had to travel to Europe, South Africa for business. And suddenly with lockdown, we had to stop production. So in a manufacturing environment, it is difficult to operate remotely, like it's very difficult to have hybrid and all. So what we maybe you've heard that there was masks, we were producing masks for all the authorities, for the population. So that did help us to operate some machines because of the high operational costs. And then quickly we started selling online. We built some e-commerce platform. The one thing that I noticed in the 3 businesses I just mentioned, they were all having e-commerce platforms. So I think this is a reality that we need to be able to sell remotely. In my latest assignment, when I joined, I saw that even Mauritius Duty Free has just built an e-commerce platform, and it will also start selling online. So I think that's the reality of what we're facing. Businesses will go through big, huge transformation digitally. And I think our role also as HR is also to make sure that we develop the right culture for businesses to be able to operate remotely.
Yeah, and that is something so interesting because that buying online and buying remotely, I mean, it's becoming part of what we do. And I know, like Grace as well, it's very much online, and that's where you go. And I think, Pradeep, from the tech side, you would probably relate to what Kavi was just saying. Now, talking about the 7 talent, there is an article from workforce.com that talks about the 7 statistics on employee turnover. This goes to September 2022. And it is all related to the US, but it's a statistic that could still talk, could still resonate to us. July 2022 saw 5.9 million total separations, not divorce, we mean leaving the job. Replacing a full-time employee can cost up to 2 times the amount of that employee's salary, know that. only 28% of workers say they have received a salary raise higher than the current inflation rate. We were just talking about that earlier on. 48% of people are leaving their current job and moving to an entirely new industry. 60% of workers would consider quitting if asked to work on-site full-time. I don't know about you, but we get the chance to work with a lot of those new young graduates who get into the profession world, the corporate world, and this is the language. And we hear that a lot. 40% of workers quit their job within their first year of employment. Probably this is nothing new. Millennials are twice as likely as boomers to quit their job. There's one thing in that article which will bring me on to my second question to our panelists. It talks about the great resignation, the great attrition, the big quit, or the great reshuffle. Since 2021, HR professionals have been dealing with high employee turnover rates and resignations as people started to return to work following the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Over a year on, the Great Resignation shows no sign of abatement. The number of new job openings vastly outweighs the number of potential new employees willing to fill those roles. So how does that resonate to what you're looking at beyond 2022, because we're already talking about 2023 and 2024. And as you start working on your workforce, what are you strategically saying needs to be done in terms of talent development so that it is no longer just kind of retaining, but I mean, we become the sexiest girl on the dancing floor? Manish.
Okay. I would have one statement for that. Is now organizations, in order to remain future fit, what we need to do to start with from the HR perspective is one of the key strategic objectives is to develop robust talent supply engines. By that I mean internal as well as external. So how do you grow your internal pipeline, as well as how do you become an attractive employer with an attractive value proposition, as well as how then you can acquire talent from abroad, from outside, as well as onboard them. One of the key statistics that you shared that I mirror completely is the 40% attrition within the first year for workers. And we see it a lot. For example, we track attrition rates. If I take the example of one of our businesses in hospitality, 40% of attrition happens within the first year. So what it means is we are either not hiring right. So hiring managers, most of you, I'm sure you will agree with me, hiring managers are not very often, by hiring managers I mean the line managers actually, are not very often trained to do proper selection exercises. So that's one element, plus how do we onboard people? That's a critical one.
And Manish, what's your opinion about, there are some industries, some sectors that are addressing this from a sectorial or industry perspective. For instance, the offshore is one of them. How do you see that as being a possible way of overcoming that problem of supply and demand?
So it is a challenging one. It's one of the most challenging ones everyone is facing actually. It's not only by sector, but across all sectors in Mauritius we are facing a massive talent shortage. So definitely we have to look at it from a sectoral point of view to see how we make the sector, including the jobs in those sectors, attractive for younger generations. If you're talking about offshore, many young talents see the offshore sector simply in Mauritius simply as a stepping stone before going abroad to work in Luxembourg, in Europe, in Malta, or even in Dubai. So for them, Mauritius is just a training ground before they move on. So what it means for us is two things. One is how do we keep on developing the pipeline internally? Because you can't prevent people from going abroad, and it's good for their career, good for their exposure. Definitely they will come back, cross fingers. And second is then how do we make sure we attract talent from abroad as well? Because we can't keep on having outflows. Unfortunately, Mauritius ranks one of the statistics where unfortunately we are known for is we rank first in Africa and fifth globally when it comes to brain drain, and that's based on the 2017 OECD report. So I'm not talking now, it's 5 years ago. So now the situation has gone worse actually.
Yes, from my perspective, it's slightly different. I was, I think, talking to Mike earlier that in the public environment, turnover is very low, it's almost nil. But we face challenges in attracting talent, currently working on a new graduate program for Maurice, but it's very difficult compared to the private sector. When I was working in the offshore sector, it was still like very easy. We used to get like 400 or 500 CVs. Now we have to work with 100, 200 CVs for the same kind of programs. So very different compared to what my friends will have to face in terms of high turnover. So it will be more on developing a strong employer brand.
Just a question, Kavi. We hear quite a few of the younger generations finding the public sector, I say that, interesting, more attractive. Is it something that you are seeing? I mean, Vanesha is nodding. We hear that quite a lot. Yeah, you've seen
Yes,
okay.
in some fields like engineers, we see that.
For lower salary, actually.
No, I mean in some of the roles, I was surprised to see that it's much about the market rating, like engineers for IT in some specific sector, like the airport, it's quite high.
I think Chris is mentioning the job security as well. Maybe that's we're moving on to Chris.
What they said.
What they said.
Yeah, it's all good. It's perfect. I think Manish's opening statement covered it all. We have 4 main clusters. We have different talent challenges in each cluster. Let's say for what you're talking about here in terms of talent movement and where is it? Yeah, talent moving away. It's more in the retail. So I want you to Suk, which is a hospitality-based entity. Very, very difficult to recruit and to find staff. On various factors, that's remuneration amongst others, and a lot of outflows, huge amount of outflows. Grays also, it's in the especially the retail aspect of Grays. We have a lot of shops in the different malls, everything. That's extremely difficult to find and to retain young talent. Again, they're young. They move after a few months, they'll move on, and it's building that pipeline of talent to be able to replace them. It's not easy because you build, then they go. So it's something that you have to attack in various fronts. So it's the retention, it's the building, and also how to attract the talent from overseas, eventually for hospitality, and even from Mauricia.
So is outsourcing, or I see, like for instance, even in the hotel here, there are a lot of I think in the group that I have in the hospitality, but you're bringing resources from Africa.
We're trying to bring, but it depends on permits and so on. But it's only a question of time before we have to open the borders to have to fill in the positions. It's a numbers game.
We haven't really suffered so much from attrition. And I think just to go back in terms of retention, I think if we look at why do we join an organization? I mean, you're a talent or you're not a talent. I think when you join an organization, people want to know, where is the company going? What is the strategy? How do I fit in that strategy? And what is my role? And finding what is my role, so what are my key responsibilities? And this goes in terms of, is the culture of performance driven one? Do I sit and have a conversation with my talents or all employees in terms of what is your contribution to that? And then how am I rewarded with regard to our performance? I think if you look at that, this is where the culture is so important. It's telling somebody, this is where we're going, this is how you're contributing to it. To help you contribute to it, this is the training I want to give you, and then this is how you're rewarded. Obviously, if somebody is not part of that conversation, then there's an exit. But I think the focus of the group has been very much in terms of retention, and it's creating the culture around these 4 parameters. We've been challenged in terms of high professionals, and this is really the set of specialized skills, not so much in terms of high potential, but high professionals. When you look at the Terra cluster, this is where we've been suffering. I mean, we don't have a lot of players in the industry, but moving to our competitor, we talk about, a high premium. So we don't want to match salary. So it's really creating the culture where, and this is where when I was talking about the 6 sort of trends in terms of how do you retain your talents without a financial incentive. And this is really what we look as the employee value proposition we want to bring in. So yeah.
I like what you're saying.
So does that tie in with what Manish was saying about what is more important is to create that right mindset, and then you've got the
because if you want to start saying I would say it's a lost battle when it comes to talent acquisition. Mauritius being Mauritius is a very, very limited time pool. So we've been focusing, I think a lot of us do engagement surveys, and we've been doing that for the last 4 years, and it's really identifying what are the drivers that will actually retain your people. So we've been doing a lot of work, and feedback is, collaboration among the sectors is why lack of collaboration is why I would leave the organization, which has nothing to do with salary and benefits. So I think we've been building more in terms of, our challenge would be really, because you can't keep matching salaries. And one of the reasons people are moving is basically salaries, right? The young generations, and they recall the statistics, they would move, 10 times by the time they reach 40 or 45? So I would say it's a lost battle, but do you want to sort of win that? So I think it's more on the engagement. Look at the drivers that drive your people to stay within the organization. And I think this is where you can win that sort of battle. It's not a...
I don't think it should be labeled as like a battle that we have to be able to retain them. I think talent has to be able to move around. We can't be greedy and just keep them for ourselves, because if you create a good culture and you know that people are engaged with you and they have a career opportunity elsewhere, that's fine. We have to let them go, grow their careers, grow themselves, and maybe someday they'll come back. And we've seen that within our group at several levels, where it's a smooth exit, it's fine. You want to grow something that we can't offer you internally, that's fine. Go, and then after a few years they came back again, and because they like the culture, they haven't left for the wrong reasons. So they've identified with the culture and they want it and they like it.
I think we have time for a few questions and then a closing comment from our panelists. So who has the first question for them? Please.
Tu peux juste te présenter and then tell us who the question is addressed to.
Sure. So hi, my name is Jessica. You've hardly touched on number 4, and my question will be, how do we as HR leaders convince the all senior generation, no offense meant to anyone, since COVID, we've seen the studies of how the mental health of employees have gone fragile, and even some going through breakdowns and depression and everything. So how do we push back to the senior management who will give you the saying that says, oh, at my time we were strong in our head and things like that. So how do you go about this? Thank you.
And your question is addressed to anybody in particular?
Anyone?
Who wants to take that question of Jessica? How do we convince the older generations to get the buy-in into the number 4?
Mental health, yeah.
Okay.
Since COVID.
Maybe you can share if you want.
Yeah.
I think, as we say, change starts from the center, has the highest potential for impact. So it's really starting with the executives themselves and tuning into, most of them have coaches, well, at least those that need to be able to perform. So one of the things that has emerged is they're under much more stress than before, so they don't talk about it. So being able to allow them to share and to talk about the level of stress that they are going through and how do they build their resilience in a way. So you need to, in a way, decode it and put it in the business language. So you need to translate it instead of talking about mindfulness. So you talk about how do you have an enabling health set tool so as to be able to allow you to perform. In a corporate world, you're also a corporate athlete. So, and a corporate athlete, to use a metaphor like that, so a corporate athlete, just like an athlete, needs to train, needs to rest, and then needs to perform. But in the corporate world, we perform. We don't rest, we don't train. So it's really how do you start with those kind of elements. So all leadership programs that we have, 20%, 25% starts with the health set. So that's how we started, and then we changed the mindset there.
Next question. Yes. Yeah. That's
I got a question, second, comment first. When will Carnegie and partner with someone to do surveys and to get some data like this for Mauritius? We always see trends from US, and these trends happen in 2020 and we get hit in 2 years later or 18 months later. C'est un peu dommage. No. So really, I think it would be really valuable, not maybe to do it every year, every 6 months, but to get some data on these kind of trends would be really helpful for everyone, and at a much larger scope as well. So that's my first comment. Thank you. And maybe to the panelists, Manish touched it a little bit. Mobility. I don't see it there on the talent trends as such, but I think, and Manish talked about it as well, we kind of lost in Mauritius, and yes, there's not much we can do in terms of talent acquisition and attract. There's so much, we're all getting in the same talent pool at the end of the day. But, well, yes, we are in there, so what can we do? And in terms of mobility, because I feel that there's probably more that could be done. I don't know why, so I wanted to hear from you in terms of how could we attract more from around the world as well, and how can we partner maybe with the government, with how can we get them to open up, like Dubai is, like Singapore is, so I don't know if you got some views on that.
Yeah. See, that's just in terms of, the approach towards talent, it's just not about the human capital side of it. If you look at what we're doing from a group perspective, is around the organizational efficiency, is doing more with less. We're very much started the digitalization journey 2 years back. And today to recruit people in showrooms is a headache. People don't want, everybody, which is good. We've got an educated, culture. A lot of HSC people go to university. So finding HSC people to work in showrooms now, you end up with graduates working in showrooms. So what we've been doing is looking at it from a holistic approach. So digitizing a lot of what we're doing, so you get less people for the same amount of work that has to be done. And we've really looked at the structure of the organizations, where we use customer centricity, the model of customer centricity in terms of how do we train more people to work from home and from the show itself. So all I'm saying is not just recruiting, it's also how do you get the organization ready to meet that challenge of acquiring talents within the market. But one of the things we've been doing, digitization has been, we've moved from a group in 2017 from 1,000 something, we already about 820, but we're doing much more than what we've been doing. So it's really, and it's really having the right enablers, human capital being one of them. So yeah, that's what we've been doing as well.
Thanks.
Maybe I can just jump on quickly. I think it'd be interesting to find out, what Manish said of the brain drain statistics of Mauritius. There are a huge number of people leaving. Why are they leaving? Why? And the people are leaving, and the talent that we bring to Mauritius are for the very lowest skilled level jobs. I don't see much talent coming in for the middle management. Why not? Why isn't Maurice attractive to these people? I don't have the answer to that. I'm just, it'll be interesting to have information because it's a pity that we can't attract those people. And perhaps at a more objective answer not answer, in my opinion, we are basically fishing in the same talent pool. I mean, it's what it is. We can't import labor at the moment. It's very, very tough. So we're in the same pool. So who's the better fisherman? And I think the better fisherman is the one who has the better culture. Basically, I mean, I have people working in our companies for less than they can than elsewhere. They have been proposed more money somewhere else, but they said, no, I want to work with you guys because I like where I'm working. Your culture, the way that I'm being treated, means something to me. So again, for me, it comes down to culture. If you can really work on that as much as possible.
Yeah, I have a more disruptive approach to that. Is if we keep fishing in the same talent pool and the talent pool is shrinking, so you imagine it's going to be more and more difficult. So we need to start thinking about growing back again. And there are examples of it already. If you take textiles, Pradeep is here, you can share about that. The textile sector has gone through what the other sectors are facing today in terms of talent shortage and so on. So, and they've been able to lobby to be able to get foreign workers to come and join the workforce here so as to be able to produce locally. So I understand, for example, the operations in Mauritius, at Terra Textiles, you have Malagasys, you have Bangladeshis, you have Indians and Sri Lankans, right? So with Mauritians, but they've been able to achieve it. So I think the way forward is that the leadership teams, the HR teams of the different companies and different sectors need to be more present with our associations, industry associations, take it one notch up and to raise our voice. At the same time, not only to lobby, but also to come up with concrete statistics, facts. How many people do we need for which sector? So what is the talent shortage that we have? So I'll give you an example. So if you take hospitality for us on our side, at any point in time during non-critical, that is non-peak hours, non-peak time, we have between 10 to 15% vacancies still open to be able to be at full operations. We're still working with 10% gaps. Now if you go into peak time, then it's around 15%. So, and I was talking to someone in retail, so retail, FMCG, goods and so on. For them, it's even worse. They are operating with 20% gaps in terms of positions. Yeah, but we don't have the data. We need to have the data so as to be able to take it to the next level. Or else we're just going to be talking about it and nothing is going to get done.
Yeah, I would like to just add on what Manish just mentioned for textile. What I experience is technology is also a key driver in there because a lot of people tend to leave organization due to lack of opportunities to grow, and we've seen a lot of people doing routine tasks. And more we're seeing the banks, the manufacturing adopting robotic process automation, they're adopting new technologies like AI. My personal experience, in manufacturing, that we were not only using technology for production, but we were also using technology for all routine tasks, whether it's in accounting, whether it's with the fashion designers who had to predict trends, so these can be done by AI. So all these things do help to retain talent because they will get to do more meaningful jobs if they are not doing the routine tasks. Yeah. So that's also something that we need to consider.
Thanks. And I saw a lot of hands going up. Yes.
Just to add on, I totally agree with what you were talking about, Kavi, and what Manish said. With regards to the data, when you look at the population at the moment, let's say Mauritius, with the number of people doing their PESAP and CP and HSC orders and SCs and all that, it's been shrinking for the past 20 years. The population is so this is a systemic thing that we need to tackle now and for the years to come. So I'll come with what I said in terms of data. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I think you had a question.
Was it? I just want to take a question.
You had
a comment on that one, but it's a different topic.
CPA, it's the same topic, it's a different question. So we take Diane and then.
Okay, so one comment and one question. The first one is to second Vincent's motion about having Mauritian data. I think we really lack information about what's happening here. So it's quite difficult sometimes when you need to push for initiatives or anything you want to do with your board or CEO when you talk about America. I mean, you would refer to 2017 data. So definitely, I think the Carnegie can have something in that. And then the second one, comment and question. When I look at the 7 points mentioned on the screen, even though I can see like we're talking about inspiring, engaging, culture, and maybe on item 6, j'entends derrière sense of purpose. You were talking about great resignation, big create, etc. I believe that today retention tool, and Chris, you were mentioning culture, but more over and above the culture of the company, I think our talents or employees in general, they're looking for a sense of purpose. Maybe COVID was a bit of a catalyst in, accentuating in ourselves the need to make a difference and to have meaning. We've talked a lot about CX, customer experience, value proposition, customer segmentation, and this is now being transferred to the employee. At TNL, we are starting to talk about employee personas. We are talking about EVP. I'm completely lost. I'm trying to make sense of it. There's not much research today about what's happening in the world. Well, many theories, many concepts, but I really want to hear from you, panelists, dear friends. How are you tackling that subject of sense of purpose for our employees, knowing that we are all different, knowing that we have so many different sense of purpose? So how do you, from a group or a company's perspective, work on your EVP to make a difference to individual employees? Thank you.
Who wants to take that one?
I can start quickly, Florian. So what you said is people not having a high purpose. That might be one of the reasons for people leaving an organization. From my personal observation in the last 2 years post-COVID, there has been a need to reinvent the leadership styles here in Mauritius. I had the opportunity to work in South Africa and Australia before, and I've seen that there's a gap in terms of how leaders tend to motivate or engage their workforce. The good news is that COVID did push this forward. One of the things I've observed is that many leaders have reinvented their leadership style. They are more optimistic. Just to take that example of being an optimistic leader, they know how to balance the positive and negative, so they will know how to communicate when there's positive stories. But you should also know how to communicate when people are anxious, when people need to be reassured. So we see a lot of leaders being coached, being trained, so that's good news. I think that's one of the steps that will help in maybe leaders just not working for the bottom line, but for a higher purpose.
Yes, maybe I can share a case study of what we've done at Rogers. You must have seen we've just gone through a rebranding. So it is work we started 9 months ago, where we started by asking ourselves a few questions. So which starts with purpose actually. So what is our purpose? Why do we do what we do? And as we work together as a team on it, what came up was 2 things. We stand for meaningful change. That is, meaningful change means shaping a better future for Mauritius and for people in whatever sector we operate in. So we replicated the same model with the different sectors we have. So each sector has a clear sense of purpose. So if you take Rogers Capital, it's about enabling progress. So we enable progress with people. Can you hear me? Yeah. So for Rogers Hospitality, it's about creating moments to remember. So from that sense of purpose, we developed our rebranding campaign with a new tagline, meaningful change. And from there, we also redefine our value proposition. So our employer value proposition, which is based on 3 key pillars. It's about how, and we put ourselves in the shoes of people by asking another question. Why will people join us? So why will people join us is they want to grow, they want to excel, and they want to thrive. So keeping it simple, so then we started to look at how do we answer these questions? How do we help people grow? So one of the key pillars is growing together. So under that, we have a whole series of elements, programs that we roll out to help people grow. That's how we build out a talent pipeline, internally and externally. Second is engaging experiences, which is about helping people excel in whatever they do. So, and that touches on balance as well as a sense of purpose, but also the environment that you work in, which allows you to perform. And finally, meaningful rewards, which allows people to thrive. So meaningful rewards is not only the remuneration part, but also everything else, which is the non-monetary. So we also rolled out our application, My Rogers, which bases itself on my ENL card, so we digitalize it to have discounts for employees. So people, for example, we had a lunch yesterday with the team outside at Le Chamal restaurant, and you were surprised to know we get 15% discount there. You just have to show your card on your mobile app, and it's all also geolocalized. That is, wherever you are in Mauritius, you just look at it, and we tell you where you have discounts around nearby with you. So we use technology for that to be able to provide that kind of experience. So just in a nutshell, grow, excel, and thrive.
So these are ways where you are reconnecting that individual with the organization and making the person part of this responsibility. And then we'll take the final question. Yes.
Just to piggyback on what Manish said, and if I understand Manish, it's all about the clarity and the transparency of the purpose of the organization, and that means that for the young, especially for the younger generation who are looking for that, at least they know what the company stands for and where they're going, and they're there to decide, well, do I align with this or not? And if they do, at least it's clear, and there are ongoing conversations with their managers, with their peers, with their mentors, to ensure that they are, the whole EVP, they're getting what they want, they need in the organization.
Just one point.
Diane, I think if you look at the organization, it's about value creation, right? Ultimately, it's about creating value. But I think creating value within the values of the company. And I think in everything that you do, you just don't compromise on these values. And this is the message that you take it in terms of these values are translated in terms of how you recruit people, how do you train people, how do you do evaluation of your people. But more importantly, cascade it down into 5 key drivers, like we talk about the organizational efficiency, we talk about learning and competence development from an HR perspective, right? Learning and competence development, we talk about talent management, and then it's about engaging your workforce, but all within the 5 values of the group. So in everything that we do, we bring back the purpose, which is about building a value-driven culture for our values. So we've got one value, purpose for the group, and the 5 values make sure in everything that we do, so then people can actually relate to the purpose of the organization, which becomes ultimately their own purpose as well.
We've got a question.
Yeah, so my question was, I know you didn't pick number 1, but the hybrid workplace, I was just interested in a comment on that, following the COVID and what you saw, because obviously we know in the rest of the world there's been quite a large movement towards this work from home and the whole link to sustainability. I have to think in Mauritius we have some room to improve on that, because the roads are so hectically busy. I was just interested to know your comments on that.
On managing that hybrid workplace, that's
exactly what you think.
Okay.
Have we changed? Have we improved? Or is there something to say about hybrid workplace?
Who wants to make a comment about the hybrid workplace and how or not it is?
Interesting, before COVID, we had a flexible working arrangements policy where you had flexi time, work from home. So when we actually had COVID happen, everybody was so happy to work from home. If you were to ask me now, everybody wants to come back to work. It's about the social skills. It's about meeting people. It's about connecting people. But we still got 10% of the workforce who wants to continue working from home. So I think it has to be flexible. You just need to have the right structure to make it happen. But for those who want to come back to work, then you realize that engaging with people, the social aspect of the job is very, very important. So it is quite a paradigm because prior to COVID, people want to work from home, but today everybody wants to come back to work.
I have a different perspective on that. I think there's a tension there, tension between what employees want and what the manager wants. Yeah, very often the managers are the ones who don't want people to be working hybrid or working from home because it's more difficult for them to manage remotely. So, and it's very easy then to bring everyone back. So the key here for us is there are two elements. First is it's a given that we can't go back. It's the way the world is now and we have to adapt to it, so we have to get on with it. But at the same time, it's how do we enable managers to be better equipped to manage in a remote environment. That's the key for it to work.
I think also when we talk about talent pools, by having companies open to that possibility of recruiting remote talent and managing them from here, it opens the doors like, well, it's not just Mauritius anymore, we're talking about the whole world. We can get certain positions, and I'm talking, of course, obviously manufacturing, production, and certain core skills that we need. That I think that needs to remain in-house. But everything else you can outsource that internationally, which is an advantage if we can tap into that.
Yeah, I think again it raises the question on leadership style. Also for me, a lot of leaders are more open with hybrid workforce than others. We've seen it with COVID. Everyone had to reinvent their business model, how to work. And now we're back to almost, I think, listening to Vanesha, I would concur with her. Most companies are above 90% physical. And I think there's room for improvement, definitely.
Absolutely.
I think what we, like you're saying, we changed the business model, but did we necessarily change or adapt the leadership style to that? And this is probably where we hear from companies where that expectation gap, where the middle management or the supervisors or the individual contributors being very fine to working from home, but then it's the management or the manager says, need you there, and it's that gap in the management, which is not something new. It's just there probably hasn't been a trust before, or whatever, and I need you here to supervise you. I just wanted to make a comment on that hybrid workplace. I met somebody last year. She had been posted to Mauritius. She's the chief marketing officer of a group of hotels in Mauritius, posted in Mauritius in 2020. But because of COVID, she couldn't travel. So for the first few months where we were also in lockdown, the entire team was working online. Everything was perfect in terms of communication, connecting with the team and so on. And then in July 2020, when we kind of went back, remember we went back to this hybrid mode and so on. And then, because there was a certain percentage of people who were face-to-face in the organization, she suddenly, now we're talking about the chief marketing officer, she suddenly started feeling left out in the team communication. Why? Because on those couple of days that people were coming in the office, conversation were happening around the coffee, walking down the corridor, but she was not in there. She was only at that moment of the meeting. And then she said, hang on, I've got to get back into this. And I think this is the challenge, is those who are not in that face-to-face or in the organization, the challenge is that they could be left out. So I guess your task is not very easy. And I'm going to leave you on this quote from Dale Carnegie that says, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying where there seemed to be no hope at all. So there we might feel that there's no hope, but what I can say is, let's keep trying, and of course, Dale Carnegie, we will look into that. We've done a thought leadership survey before, that was before COVID, and now that things are back into shape, it could be one of the topics that we would want to work on with you. Thank you very much for being here, and please let's congratulate again and thank again our panelists, Vanesha, Chris, Kavi, and Manish for your time. And we will
invite you for a networking outside. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.